Emotional attachment is one of the most subtle yet powerful forces shaping human experience, quietly influencing our decisions, our relationships, and even the way we perceive ourselves. It ties us not only to people, but also to memories, expectations, and illusions that may no longer serve our growth, and in some cases, may even cause us deep emotional harm. From the perspective of Carl Jung, attachment is not simply about affection or emotional bonding. It is far more complex, rooted in the unconscious layers of the psyche. What we often believe to be love or need is, in many instances, a projection of unresolved parts within ourselves. We do not cling to others solely because of who they are, but because they mirror something hidden inside us that we have yet to recognize or accept. When you find yourself unable to let go of someone who does not love you, it may feel like loss, rejection, or even personal failure. But Jung would suggest something deeper is at play. What you are truly resisting is not the absence of the other person, but the confrontation with a part of yourself that has been projected outward. The human psyche is not a single unified entity. It is made up of multiple layers, including aspects that remain hidden in what Jung called the shadow. This shadow contains everything we repress, deny, or fail to integrate, including unacknowledged desires, fears, wounds, and unmet emotional needs. And it is precisely this shadow that keeps us attached to relationships that do not nurture us. The person you cannot let go of is often not the real source of your attachment. Instead, they carry a symbolic role, reflecting qualities, needs, or emotional patterns that originate within you. When love is not reciprocated, the pain is not only about rejection, it is about the internal void that becomes exposed. In many cases, we seek validation, worth, or completeness through another person because we have not yet cultivated those qualities within ourselves. This is the hidden trap of attachment. It convinces us that our fulfillment depends on someone else, while in truth, what we are searching for is the integration of our own fragmented psyche. Letting go of someone who does not love you is therefore not just an emotional decision, it is a psychological transformation. It is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending the connection never mattered. On the contrary, it requires you to understand why that connection felt so significant in the first place. Jung emphasized that what we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves often manifests externally in repetitive patterns. If you repeatedly find yourself in one-sided relationships, this is not random. It is a signal, a reflection of something unresolved within your inner world that seeks attention and healing. This unresolved pattern may stem from earlier experiences, perhaps from childhood, where emotional needs were not fully met, or from past relationships that left lasting wounds. It may also arise from deeply rooted beliefs about your own worth, such as feeling unworthy of love, fearing abandonment, or equating love with effort and struggle. Until these patterns are recognized and addressed, they tend to repeat themselves, often with different people, but in similar emotional dynamics. This is why letting go is not simply about moving on from a person. It is about breaking a cycle within yourself. The first step in this process is recognizing projection. Instead of focusing entirely on the other person, you begin to turn inward and ask a more honest question. What am I seeing in them that I have not yet developed or accepted in myself? Perhaps you admire their confidence, their independence, or the way they seem to move through life with certainty. These qualities may feel external, but Jung would argue that they resonate with you because they exist within your potential. Your attachment may be rooted in a desire to experience those qualities through them, rather than embodying them yourself. If you're drawn to someone because they make you feel valued, special, or seen, it is worth asking why you struggle to offer those same feelings to yourself. The more you depend on another person to provide a sense of worth, the stronger the attachment becomes. But when you begin to cultivate self-recognition, self-respect, and inner stability, the need for external validation gradually weakens. This is not an overnight change, but it marks the beginning of emotional independence. The second step involves confronting the shadow. This is often the most difficult part because it requires you to face aspects of yourself that you may have avoided for a long time. If you constantly find yourself in relationships where you feel overlooked or undervalued, it is important to explore whether there is a part of you that unconsciously accepts or expects that treatment. This does not mean you are to blame for how others treat you, but it highlights an internal belief system that influences what you tolerate and what you seek. These beliefs are often formed early in life and reinforced over time. A distant parent, inconsistent affection, or previous emotional pain can create patterns that shape your expectations of love. But these patterns are not fixed. They can be examined, understood, and gradually transformed. True change begins when you stop looking outward for healing and instead turn inward to address the source of the wound. This is where genuine growth takes place, not in changing others, but in understanding yourself more deeply. The third step is what Jung referred to as individuation, the process of becoming your true self beyond external influences and expectations. This journey involves shedding identities, attachments, and relationships that are not aligned with your authentic nature. Letting go of someone who does not reciprocate your love becomes part of this process, not because you are rejecting them, but because you are choosing alignment with yourself. It is a shift from seeking completion through others to recognizing your own wholeness. Individuation also requires accepting that not every connection is meant to last. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to reveal something important about you. They act as mirrors, showing you both your strengths and your unresolved areas. Trying to hold on to a relationship that lacks mutual connection is like forcing pieces together that do not fit. It creates tension, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. Letting go, in this sense, is not a loss, but a realignment. True emotional detachment is often misunderstood. It is not about becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It is not about denying your feelings or pretending you never cared. Instead, it is rooted in understanding. You begin to see that the other person was never the source of your happiness, but rather a reflection of something within you that needed attention. Love, in its truest form, is not about dependency or possession. It is about freedom, both for yourself and for the other person. At this stage, many people experience fear, particularly the fear of emptiness. When a strong attachment dissolves, it can leave behind a sense of space that feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable. However, Jung viewed this emptiness not as something negative, but as a necessary condition for transformation. It is a space where new awareness can emerge, where new possibilities can take root. If you remain attached to what no longer serves you, there is no room for something more aligned to enter your life. In that emptiness, something significant begins to happen. You start to rediscover yourself, not as someone incomplete or dependent, but as someone inherently whole. This shift is subtle at first, but over time, it becomes transformative. When you stop searching for love outside of yourself, you begin to generate it from within. Your sense of worth becomes less dependent on external validation, and your relationships begin to reflect that inner stability. As this inner change unfolds, your perspective on relationships also shifts. You no longer feel compelled to hold on to connections that drain you or require constant effort to maintain. Instead, you begin to value peace, balance, and mutual respect. You recognize that the right relationships do not need to be forced or chased. They emerge naturally when you are aligned with yourself. Emotional detachment, in this sense, is not the absence of love. It is a deeper, more mature form of it. It allows you to care without losing yourself, to connect without becoming dependent, and to let go without resentment. You begin to understand that love is not something you possess or control. It is something you experience and share, without attachment to outcome. At a deeper level, this process represents a profound transformation of the psyche. Letting go is not just about ending a relationship. It is about becoming a different version of yourself, one that is more conscious, more integrated, and more aligned with your true nature. This transformation does not happen instantly. It requires patience, courage, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But the outcome is deeply meaningful because it leads you back to yourself. As you continue along this path of letting go, a subtle but powerful realization begins to take shape. What once felt like love may reveal itself as something else entirely, a mixture of fear, habit, and emotional dependence. The fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, and the fear of losing something that was never truly yours can create the illusion that holding on is necessary. Yet, as Jung suggested, fear often acts as a barrier that prevents us from accessing deeper truths about ourselves. When you begin to confront that fear rather than avoid it, something shifts internally. You start to see solitude not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to reconnect with your own inner world. The absence of the other person, which once felt like a void, gradually transforms into a space of possibility. Instead of focusing on what is missing, you begin to notice what is present. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions more grounded, and your sense of self more stable. This is because attachment often distorts perception, making you believe that your completeness depends on someone else. But as you detach, you begin to understand that everything you were searching for externally already exists within you. Peace, love, security, and a sense of worth are not things to be given by another. They are qualities to be recognized and cultivated from within. Letting go does not mean erasing the past or denying the emotions you experienced. It means accepting what happened without becoming trapped in it. Memories remain, but they no longer control your present. You begin to see the relationship not as a failure, but as a meaningful experience that revealed something important about yourself. Jung believed that every interaction we have carries symbolic meaning, reflecting deeper aspects of our psyche. When someone enters your life and later leaves, it is not necessarily a loss. It is part of a process that helps you understand yourself more clearly. Each relationship, especially the ones that challenge or hurt us, acts as a mirror. It can show you what you truly desire, what you're no longer willing to accept, and what parts of yourself still require attention. Perhaps it revealed your need for validation, your fear of abandonment, or your tendency to overlook your own needs in order to maintain a connection. These insights are not punishments. They are opportunities for growth. But growth can only occur when you are willing to release the attachment and move forward. The difficulty arises when the mind becomes stuck in cycles of regret and nostalgia. You may find yourself replaying moments, wondering what could have been different, or imagining alternative outcomes. This mental loop creates the illusion that the past can somehow be changed if only you think about it enough. But the truth is, the past cannot be altered. It can only be understood. And once you truly understand it, its emotional grip begins to loosen. You are no longer bound to it in the same way. Choosing to let go is one of the most profound acts of self-respect. It is a declaration that your well-being matters more than maintaining a connection that does not support your growth. It is a shift from seeking approval to honoring your own needs. However, this choice is often met with resistance from the mind. It may tell you that you need that person, that you will not find someone else like them, or that letting go means losing something irreplaceable. But it is important to question these thoughts. Are they based on reality, or are they rooted in fear and attachment? Love, in its true form, does not create suffering. It does not diminish your sense of self, or keep you in a constant state of uncertainty. If a connection consistently causes pain, it is not because love is flawed, but because there is an underlying wound that has not yet been addressed. That wound cannot be healed by holding on to the person who triggered it. It requires your own attention, your own awareness, and your willingness to face it directly. As you begin to release the attachment, your perception of life gradually changes. You start to recognize that people enter your life not by accident, but as reflections of your internal state. When a relationship ends, it does not signify an ending in the absolute sense. It marks the transition into a new phase. But for that new phase to truly begin, you must be willing to close the previous chapter. This closure does not come from resentment or denial, but from understanding and gratitude. Gratitude for the experience, for the lessons learned, and for the growth it made possible. Every person who crosses your path leaves something behind. Sometimes it is clarity about what you want. Sometimes it is awareness of what you need to change. And sometimes it is simply the realization of what you no longer wish to repeat. When you begin to see relationships in this way, you shift from a mindset of loss to one of learning. This shift is essential for emotional freedom. True freedom does not mean having no attachments at all. It means relating to others without losing yourself in the process. It means being able to love without needing to possess. to care without becoming dependent, and to connect without making someone else the center of your existence. Love becomes something you share, not something you rely on for identity or worth. And when you reach this level of understanding, you realize that the most important relationship in your life has always been the one you have with yourself. This journey does not offer shortcuts. Emotional detachment requires you to examine long-held beliefs, patterns, and assumptions about love and self-worth. It challenges you to let go of narratives that may have defined your identity for years. But once you move through this process, something fundamental changes. You stop chasing what has left, and instead, you begin to trust what is yet to come. You stop searching for love externally and start cultivating it internally. As this inner transformation deepens, you may notice that your relationships begin to change as well. You attract different kinds of people, not because you're trying to, but because your internal state has shifted. You're no longer operating from a place of lack or need, but from a sense of completeness. And from that place, connections become more balanced, more genuine, and more aligned with who you truly are. Detachment, in this context, is not a rejection of love. It is an elevated way of experiencing it. It is love without fear, without demands, and without unrealistic expectations. It is an understanding that no one belongs to you, and you do not belong to anyone. This realization may feel unsettling at first, but it is ultimately liberating. It frees you from the pressure of holding on and allows you to experience relationships with greater openness and authenticity. As you continue to let go, your mind may still attempt to return to familiar patterns. It may bring back memories, highlight moments of happiness, or create a sense of longing for what once was. This is a natural part of the process. The mind tends to hold on to what is familiar, even if it is no longer beneficial. But with awareness, you can observe these thoughts without becoming attached to them. You can acknowledge them and allow them to pass. Over time, the emotional weight begins to lift. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. You gain clarity not only about the relationship but about yourself. You begin to see that peace is not found in holding on, but in letting go. This realization marks a turning point. You are no longer defined by the past, nor are you controlled by your attachments. You're free to move forward with a deeper sense of understanding. When you release the need to hold on, you also release the need to wait, to analyze, and to question your worth based on someone else's actions. You come to understand that love is not something to be chased or earned through effort. Respect is not something you have to demand, and connection is not something that should feel forced. These insights reshape the way you approach relationships moving forward. This does not mean you will stop loving. On the contrary, you may find that your capacity for love expands, but it comes from a different place, not from need or fear, but from wholeness. You love because you choose to, not because you depend on it. You connect because it feels right, not because you fear being alone. This shift changes everything. At its core, emotional detachment is a process of transformation. It is a journey in which you move away from who you thought you needed to be and closer to who you truly are. Along the way, there will be moments of discomfort, reflection, and even pain. But each of these moments is part of the process, signaling that something within you is evolving. When you finally reach a point where you can let go fully, you may look back and realize that what you thought was loss was actually a form of rediscovery. You did not lose something essential. You found something fundamental within yourself. You discovered your own strength, your own worth, and your own capacity to move forward. In the end, true love is not defined by how tightly you hold on to someone else, but by how deeply you understand and accept yourself. It is not about being completed by another person, but about recognizing that you were never incomplete to begin with. This realization changes the way you see everything. Life is no longer experienced from a place of lack, but from a sense of abundance. Letting go of someone who does not love you may be one of the most difficult experiences you face, but it is also one of the most liberating. It is not just about releasing a person. It is about reclaiming yourself. It is about understanding that the love you were searching for externally has always existed within you, waiting to be recognized. According to Jung, true healing is not about forgetting or suppressing experiences, but about integrating them. It is about acknowledging what has been, learning from it, and allowing it to become part of your growth rather than a source of pain. Every relationship, every ending, and every emotional challenge carries meaning. When you begin to understand that meaning, suffering transforms into insight, and attachment transforms into freedom. This is the paradox of love. It is only when you stop seeking it from a place of need that it begins to appear in its most genuine form. When you no longer rely on someone else to define your worth, you create the conditions for healthier, more authentic connections. These connections are not based on dependency, but on resonance. They are not sustained by fear, but by choice. And this kind of love can only emerge when you have learned to be at peace with yourself. It arises when you have faced your shadow, understood your patterns, and released what no longer aligns with your growth. This journey may not be easy, but it is deeply meaningful, because in the end, life is not about holding on to what causes pain, but about moving toward what supports your evolution. It is not about staying trapped in memories or waiting for someone else to choose you. It is about choosing yourself again and again without hesitation, without guilt, and without fear. And when you do, everything begins to change.